Hello and welcome to PMP Prep Exam in a nutshell. I am Muhammad Radi, Director of the Project Metric Solution. On this session, we are going to talk about the planning process group. The last session, we have talked about the initiating process group, and according to our methodology, we are going to cover the planning process group, executing process group, and monitoring and controlling, and till we finish the closing process group. And according to our methodology, also, I'd like to introduce you to the content of the project management plan. What's our objective here? To know identify the primary inputs, the tool and technique involved in the outputs of every processing every processes in the planning process group. Now, let's start with the definition of the project management plan. What is it? Any project without planning or plan, it is a recipe of disaster. It has to be a plan which is a formal, cohesive, one document approved, used to guide all the processing groups. It refines and defines the course of the action required to attain the objectives. What the purpose? It is helping you to be a proactive manager and instead of being a reactive one. It facilitates the communication among team members and the stakeholders. The project management plan is used to document planning assumption and decisions and to document the approved scope, cost, and the schedule baseline. So there is tasks I'd like you to look at. It is designed by project management institutes. The number of the tasks, it is not processes. The number of tasks in the planning, it is about 13. So it is talks about the scope management plan, the requirement management plan, the cost management plan, and the human resources, communication, and the procurement, and the quality change management plan, the risk management plan, and it is designed to these tasks. What you do once you're done with it, you have to present the project management plan to relevant stakeholders to obtain approval to proceed with the project execution. And then finally, you conduct a kickoff meeting to inform and engage stakeholders and gain commitment. So now we are going to talk about the processes. This, as you see here, it is made up of 24 processes about the planning, and all of them, the main issue is to get the project management plan. When you get the final, you talk about the inputs in general, you talk about the tool and techniques in general, you talk about the outputs in general. This as a guideline when you develop any component of the project management plan. So it is, as I said, it is one document. Don't look at it as a separate part. So when you go to document and you find the scope management plan, no, it is one unit, cohesive unit. It is under, if you look at the page 78, and you'll find every knowledge area, you'll find output, except the integration management plan, but you find here scope management plan, schedule, etc. It is 9. And then the 4 here, most of my students forget about change management plan, the requirement management plan, and here 3 baselines all together compromise and unify the content of the project management plan. And I'd like also you to make the difference between project management plan and the project documents. So what the content of the project management plan, don't forget that it is roles and the responsibility of who is doing what, why, when, and where, how you do it, and how much. So this is the guideline. And of course, in the project management plan, you find the project charter and the 3 baselines, and you all the times, from one time to another, you update your project management plan. Now we are going to talk about the scope management plan. It is 4 processes and it has inputs, it has tool and technique, it has outputs. And if you look at the knowledge area, then you have to consider the monitoring and controlling process group. So these, what the compromise the knowledge area. but we are going to focus only on the planning process group. As a tip for the exam, try to follow the input, which is the output, which is used as input while you are doing the planning, your scope management plan. So it is, as you see here, it is 4 processes. Let's see what are the 4 processes. The major outputs of the plan scope management, 3 components, which are part of the scope management plan. They are the scope management plan, requirement management plan, scope baseline, and documents, project documents, which is requirement traceability metrics, project scope statement, and requirement documentation. So you have to make the difference between what is project document, what is project plan. Now, what the purpose? The scope management plan, it is part of the PMP. It talks about the roles and responsibility of the project manager, the project sponsor, the stakeholders team, and who has the authority and who had the authority in terms of the scope in general, who initiate the change process, who had the responsibility of accepting the final, and what the criteria. So it is also shows you how the scope baseline is defined. And when we talk about the scope baseline, it talk about the scope statement, work breakdown structure, and its dictionary, and how the scope is measured and validated. So we are going to talk also under the requirement management plan, which is part of the PMP, about how to describe the features and the functionality of your product and the authorization level of your sponsor or you to approve any changes of the deliverable, and to put key performance indicators or metrics to gauge progress of your deliverable. Finally, you're going to find here the scope baseline, which is part also of the PMP. Its elements, it make easy for for your project to be managed. Now, what they are the 4? Let's start with the plan scope management. It is the process of creating a scope management plan and that documents how the project scope will be defined and validated. And you can look at it page 107 if you have the electronic version. And again, you're going to see here the inputs, tool and technique, and the outputs. The outputs here, scope management plan and requirement management plan. How about the collect? When you collect the requirement, it's a process of defining documenting stakeholders' needs to meet the project objective, and it creates the requirement traceability metrics where it is a database for all the requirements of your stakeholders. Here, don't get scared when you see the inputs, tool and technique, and the outputs, whether to memorize or not, just to make the logic out of it. So in this case, I'd like you to look at the scope management plan, requirement management plan, the stakeholders management plan, the project charter stakeholder register, and for tool and technique, anything related to collect requirement from a group. So you have interviews, focused groups, facilitated workshops, etc. The output here, requirement traceability metrics. Now, when we define the scope, you see the purpose here to get the project scope statement. What the project scope statement is about? It's about detailed description of the project or the product or the service or results. It is iterative approach to allow progressive elaboration. This term is new, it might be new for you, so you can use it as it's basically about something you develop by the time everything, the features will be more clear. So again, to find out when you use the processes, there is output. One of the output you might use it to as input here. So in this case, when you define the scope, you're going to get project scope statement. So you are going to use it as input when you create the work breakdown structures. Now, what the inputs here, scope management plan, project charter, requirement documentation, what tool and technique, expert, subject matter expert, or facilitation workshop, and you're gonna get the project scope statement, and which is one of the project documents. The last step here, it is about creating the work breakdown structures, and it defines a baseline for performance measurement and control. It improves accuracy of the cost, time, and resources, and it facilitates clear responsibility assignment. It's the process of subdividing project deliverable and the project work into smaller, more manageable components. So you find here it is the scope management plan as input, the project scope statement, requirement documentation, and enterprise environmental factors, which is related to um, the market, the regulation of the government, and you find organization process assets, which deals with the policy and the processes. I like also to look at new expression here in tool and technique, which called decomposition. And the output here, when you create work breakdown structures, you're gonna get scope baseline, which is part of your project management plan. Now, if you try to review all these things in the PMPA guide, page 129 and 130. Now, what the next video is going to be about, it's going to be about the schedule. We finished the scope management plan. We got an idea about the scope of my project and the scope products. So I need to get schedule. I need to get a management plan to get how to define the activities, how to define the sequence activity, how to estimate activity resources, how to estimate activity duration, and how to develop the schedule, how to know the inputs, tool and technique, and the output. Finally, if you like my video, please subscribe and share it, and go to my projectmetricsolution.com and go to the resources and download what you have related to the subject for free. Thank you, and see you in the next slide, video. Bye bye.